You are shredding the UN Charter.
Today, Israel's ambassador to the UN acted like a child as the rest of the UN voted to grant Palestine more rights. So, in this video, I'm going to go over the vote today, the individuals or the states that abstained or voted against Palestine, and what Israel did. Because this attempt at trying, I don't know, to get some sympathy really fell flat. So first here, this is the big vote that happened today from the AP. So the UN General Assembly voted by a wide margin to grant new rights and privileges to Palestine and called on the Security Council to favorably reconsider its request to become the 194th member of the UN. I'll get to more on that in a bit. But in this case, the 193-member world body approved the Arab and Palestinian-sponsored resolution by a vote of 143 to 9 with 25 abstentions. And as they write here, of course, the U.S. Vetoed a widely backed council resolution on April 18th that would have paved the way for full UN membership for Palestine. Now, this is the moment. I will get to the shredding of the UN Charter later, but this is the moment that the vote happened. This is a great moment.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/ES10/L30/revision 1, entitled Admission of New Members to the United Nations. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine. 142.
All right. I just got a comment on the last image here. This is one of the sitting members there of Israel recording the room for some reason as they're all applauding. This maybe is an intimidation tactic. I don't know. A little absurd. But as the State of Palestine writes on Twitter, thank you to the people of the world, nations, and majority of states who voted for Palestinian self-determination, for Palestinian existence and future. Thank you for standing for humanity, for the UN Charter, and for freedom and justice. Onwards until 194th member. Now, I'll get to the rights that were granted to Palestine in this vote. But first here from Evan Dyer of CBC, writing, Canada has reversed policy and abstained at the UN vote today on Palestinian statehood. Canada has been so back and forth, pretending they're for the right thing, and then when it comes down to it, of course, they actually aren't. But UK, Germany, and Italy also abstained. France and Germany voted yes. The USA now becomes the only G7 member opposing Palestinian statehood. Also voting against was Argentina, Hungary, Czechia, Israel, Papua New Guinea, and 3 Pacific Island statelets that allow Washington to use their votes. The vast majority of countries in support of Palestinian statehood. But of course, one of the main barriers is the Security Council, the UN Security Council, where there is 5 permanent members. That includes the U.S., and these are all rotating members here. But because of the existence of the U.S. on the Security Council, it's not going to happen until there are some major changes, both in leadership in the U.S., but also, of course, in Israel, unless the U.S. uses their power in the way that they should. But here are some of the rights that were granted today. So Palestine can now be seated among member states in alphabetical order. So even though they are not a member, they can be seated among the member states, make statements on behalf of a group, submit proposals and amendments and introduce them, co-sponsor proposals and amendments, including on behalf of a group, propose items to be included in the provisional agenda. So essentially allowing a voice for Palestinians at the UN in a way that they didn't have before. So this is some real progress here. It's not, of course, full membership, but it is real progress in the right direction. Now, I find this just a wild, ridiculous excuse. So Canada abstained from the vote. In a statement, Global Affairs Canada said it did so in favor of a two-state solution. So they abstained from a vote for Palestinian statehood because they're in favor of a Palestinian state. Like, sit with that for a minute. How ridiculous is that? Now, the reason they are doing this is because they don't want to be the ones to, in this case, tell Israel and tell the U.S. that there should be the state of Palestine, that they should be recognized at the UN before Israel and the U.S. recognizes it. So once again, of course, Canada sitting in the back seat, not willing to be a leader here and fight for human rights and just fight for what is the right thing to do. But just the reasoning is so absurd, considering they're claiming in the reasoning that they support a two-state solution, yet you voted against the very state you want. Now, here is the most ridiculous moment. This is the Israeli ambassador at the UN using a paper shredder to shred the UN charter on the podium of the UN General Assembly ahead of the vote. Let me just play it first.
This is you are shredding the UN Charter with your own hands.
Pretty sure you're doing that. I know I'm being, pedantic here, but if you want to say, oh, you're all shredding the UN Charter with your actions or your words, but to say that they're doing it with their hands when you are literally shredding the UN Charter with your hands, a little ridiculous.
Yes, that's what you're doing. Shredding the UN Charter. Shame on you.
Okay. It's so, I feel like if somebody in a position of power, somebody of authority is forced to use a prop to make a point, then they're losing the argument. I think back recently to the NYPD, where after they shut down those campus protests, they found these chains. Oh, the doors at Hins Hall, they were blocked with these chains wrapped around the doors. We know they're not students because they had these chains. They were just bike locks, which were on the campus website. You could see they're I did a video on this, the exact same bike locks. But they brought this prop, these chains, the bike lock, to speak to the media, and whoever it was, one of the members of the NYPD, they drop it on the desk, like boom, like to make this noise, to try to make a point. When you're bringing props with you because you have nothing, we know you've lost. So this is just completely ridiculous. As if people are supposed to be offended that you're shredding the UN Charter. Oh my, did he just shred the charter? Well, this is much more offensive than the state of Israel killing 30,000 civilians, mostly women and children. Yes, no. Forget that. Forget those civilian lives. Forget those innocent people. Forget that ethnic cleansing. Forget that genocide. What we really should be offended by right now is the shredding of this piece of paper. Just an absolute clown. Not to mention, at least, and this is from January, the numbers, of course, likely have increased. Again, I've discussed it. It's hard to get accurate numbers at this time or any accurate data from Gaza because the infrastructure is no longer in place, because Israel has absolutely decimated the whole area. But as CNN writes here, at least 152 UNRWA staffers, these are UN staffers, have been killed in Gaza since the beginning of Israel's bombardment. This is like, why should anybody at the UN have to care what Israel has to say? Forget even, the shredding of the paper here. Why should anybody take them seriously at the UN when they're the ones in the past 6 months that have literally killed UN staffers?